Welcome to tonight's Ram Dass Fellowship live stream and the CD release party for the Bhav of KK Sah. It's really great to be with all of you and the ways that we're finding to be together and deepen into community during these times. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jackie. Oh,
It also
okay,
sounded
I'm
like
ready. Tell me when to go.
it sounded like you're saying, "Welcome to the Tonight Show."
Did it? Welcome to the Tonight Show. Oh, well,
Welcome to the
welcome.
Tonight Show.
Welcome to the night. Welcome to the Ram Dass Fellowship live stream and our CD release party for the Bhav of KK Sah. It's really so lovely to be together as a satsang and find ways to deepen in these times. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jackie Dobrinska. I'm the Director of Community Outreach, Education, and Inclusion for the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation. And you all are the Ram Dass Satsang, a community of folks who are deepening into these teachings together. And as satsang, we are a spiritual community, which is so important, especially in these times. And we come together in these different ways, even in these virtual ways, to nourish our hearts and souls and to remember the deeper truths and practices, which can be really easy to forget in these times. So while it might feel like we're all sitting in front of our computers watching alone or with a friend or two, it's really nice to remember that there's this web of folks out there, and each is this point of light and interconnectedness, and we're all here together. So we hopefully celebrate love every day, but today is this day we sort of call it out consciously. And there's so many kinds of love to celebrate. There's love of community, there's love of children, of pets, of friends, of teachers, of God and nature and practice and devotion and family and friends. And tonight is super special because we have 3 old friends and deep bhaktis coming together to celebrate the love of another dear friend. So tonight with us is Raghu Markus, who's the director of Love, Serve, Remember Foundation and hosts both Mind Rolling podcast and the Ram Dass's Here and Now podcast, along with good friend Krishna Das, the beloved Kirtan wala, who also has another great podcast called Awaken Heart on the Be Here Now network. And the lovely Rameshwar Das, who is a photographer and author of several books, including the most recent one he co-authored with Ram Dass that was released last month called Being Ram Dass, which is already on several bestseller lists. So all 3 of these amazing men were not only touched by Maharaji, but this amazing human KK Sah. And I'm going to let them tell you about him. But I did want to mention that as part of the release party tonight, you can find his album, which is by collectible digipack or downloadable audio at shop.ramdas.org. And you'll hear I think you'll hear different things from him tonight. And before I turn it over to these 3 amazing men, just one quick note on technology. We'll be here about 90 minutes together. And later in the evening, we'll have a live Q&A, audience Q&A. And all you have to do is type into the chat anytime during this next 90 minutes of whatever platform you're watching from, and then we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. So with that, let's just give a big, loving heart welcome to these brilliant men as we explore love, family, and Bhav.
Thank you, Jackie. We do have to make one little correction because Krishna Das's podcast is called Pilgrim Heart, actually.
I didn't know that.
I know you didn't. So now you know. Now everybody knows.
I'll check it out.
So I just wanted to show this fabulous thing that KK, we're going to come at it from so many different angles of the relationship with KK and who he was and who he is to us. But one day he put together something we asked him to put together, which was the essence. KK used to talk about the Ramayana to us all the time for all these years. And here is this beautiful document he put together. And actually, Rachel made it into a beautiful little, very small little book. And we were looking at it, and I I hadn't seen this in quite a while, but this is Ram Dass talking about KK. When I had my first darshan with my guru, Neem Karoli Baba Maharaj-ji, KK Sah was my translator, the first person I met from Maharaji's family of devotees. When Maharaji had KK take me into his home, he also had him take me into his heart. KK became my brother. I truly felt the bond beyond this lifetime with KK, something I had never before felt. He was never impressed with my Western credentials. Instead, we had unconditional love. And that love went on from those first few moments, 1967? And KK left 3 weeks after Ram Dass. And Ram Dass left at the end of 2019, and KK in January of 20. And they had constant communication. And KK came here many, many different times to America, starting in 1974, I believe.
74. He came to Naropa.
Right, he came to Naropa,
Yeah.
where Ram Dass was teaching, and then thereafter he would come and spend time in people's houses, the three of us and many other people as well. And what he brought into each of these homes was, and nothing to do with anything he said, or I mean, he used to help with figuring out how to cook kidgeri and so on and so forth, but the honoring of absolutely something that we as Westerners never really had an idea about, even if we had a little bit of an intellectual idea. KK would come out of his room with incense burning after he'd do a little bit of puja, and he'd go around to every picture in the entire house and spend time with each deity, with each teacher, whoever it may be. His level of honor throughout the household was just extraordinary, very extraordinary. I'll just tell one little story and then we can all share, because we're talking about what Bhav is. And I don't think we showed. Here's the CD that just came out, KK. And Krishna Das and I will talk a little bit about how somehow we got him into a studio in New York in the 80s. And this has never seen the light of day except amongst people who knew about it and said, hey, send me a CD. So we're going to talk a little bit about Bhav, and we have some great footage of KK speaking of it himself. But just to say, the most loose definition of it is the emotional expression of love to the divine. And KK, so this is the story. So we would all go to Kenchi every day and hang out for the day, and then we come back, and a couple of times a week, KK would teach us the Guru Arti, which we were trying to learn, and so we could get with Maharaji and do it. We do the whole puja, which we ended up doing at some point. So one time, we came back from spending the entire day with Maharaji, and then my first wife to be at that time, named Parvati Markus, who wrote that great book, Love Everyone, all of our stories getting to India, she and I went boating. We used to go boating on the lake in Nainital, and of course,
Boating.
yes, and we
Boating.
would have a little chillum. And so one day we did that.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, you did a little back then, but hardly. You're right. So we went to the hotel where we were all staying, and then in one of the common rooms, KK came in. There was, maybe 30 people, something like that, in the room, learning the arti. So I'm sitting down, and he starts to sing Jai Jagadish Hare. He sings 3 notes, And suddenly this surge came through me of energy. And it was so powerful that my whole body started to shake. And both, it's great to have both of you around that you don't remember one thing about this, okay? You know,
All I want to know is
dementia
if I
is
could
good.
can I get some of that smoke now, or is it too late?
It's a combo, okay?
Oh, I see.
It's a combo. Anyhow, I ended up where I had to race out of the room because I couldn't sit there anymore. And Ramesh and I were rooming together, and when you came up the stairs, and I knew it was you coming in the door, I had every blanket I could get over me, and I was it was like I had, you know, COVID or something, imagining how I was really out there. And I said, get Ram Dass. And he went out, he got Ram Dass, and Ram Dass came in, he held on to my hand and just sucked all that Shakti right out. It was real. And for about a week, I was in like I had just taken acid or something. KK's, just a few notes from KK, even without anything else, never mind being all day with Maharaji and Kenchi, was enough to take you into another zone, for sure. And we had that from the very beginning, how he, just his being, and he would just hang out with us and sing Kirtan and teach us different melodies and so on. So fortunately, we ended up in New York. He was in New York, and Krishna Das and I, what were you just saying? You don't believe that we didn't take the harmonium down there?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember even how it happened. I don't remember the studio. Just trying to remember when how could we take KK to a studio and we didn't even have a harmonium? That's what I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm trying to remember. What were we thinking? I mean, what, did we just arrive at the studio? What?
Yeah.
What?
Well, the cool thing about it was, though, that we had, we got a sound, or the engineer helped us to get a sound that was at least distantly like a harmonium. Mm-hmm. And this, it gives the CD a certain feeling that probably wouldn't have happened had he played the harmonium.
And we brought that drum that
Yeah.
Maharaji had bought for me, that clay mridang. It was crazy.
Yeah.
We had to play it. That was worse. You and me had to play drum because we had no drummer. So we're like, okay.
Yeah.
And KK just, you know, he just went with the flow. He was fine with everything.
Mm. Well, why don't we play play one track from it, so everybody gets an idea of what we're talking about. JR, maybe you can play the KK track, and then we'll talk about it after.
Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayan Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayan Vasudeva He Nath Narayan Vasudeva He Nath Narayan Vasudeva He Nath Narayan Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayan Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayan Vasudeva वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव 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 श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव
There you go, everybody. That's a track from a new album, the Bhav of KK Sah. And actually, while you were hearing the track and seeing some of the beautiful slides, Krishna Das actually was reminding of what it was like when we were in India with KK in Nainital, the town where he lived, and I think you started out by saying he was not a professional musician, had nothing to do with that. Why don't you go ahead on that?
Yeah, you know, he was people in India in those days especially they did their daily lives, but their personal lives were all so centered on God and on devotion, on prayer and bhajan and things like that. So KK had been singing his whole life, but he wasn't a professional musician. He was a clerk for a while in the town board, and on Holi, which is the festival of the gopis playing with Krishna. They would have these long bhajan sessions, singing sessions, and KK would invite these singers from all over the hills, and he knew all the really great singers. And they would start off singing bhajans, and the young guys would start, and as the evening went on, and older and older guys, and by the end, the old guys could sometimes barely sing, you know, living in the mountains their whole lives, smoking beedies, and their lung power was very limited, and they had throat problems, and very, you know, they could barely carry a tune, but the bhav coming through them was so intense, the people would just be wiped out, crying. It just hearts would be opening. It would be. It wasn't about the music. The music was only transmitting the feeling in the heart. It wasn't really. It's not really emotion. It's not emotion based on attachment. It's the emotion of coming face to face with real love. That feeling. So, and those old guys. And, you know, as the years went on, the old guys died and the younger guys became the old guys, like us, you know. And so much was lost in the last years, you know, last few years of the history of the traditions of the mountains and the old traditions in India.
He may not have been professional, but he was a pretty great musician too, and he loved music. I mean, that was such a great love of his.
Yeah.
And
But it was all out of love. It wasn't performing. He almost didn't like to sing for people. We had to like threaten him to get us to sing, to get him to sing for us. You know, but
and at those sittings, there would always be that arm twisting that would go on to get somebody to sing, which was.
And it wasn't that he didn't want to. It's just that for him, it was such a powerful experience that to go into that place, it was not just nothing. It was not something he could just do off the cuff. You know, it was something very powerful for him, and you have to surrender to it. It's not so easy to do it on demand, so to speak.
Yeah.
And because it was so real for him that to share that deepest part of when he would open like that, you know, it was so powerful. Sometimes when Maharaji would ask him to sing, and he might sing, but then in the middle of it, he'd just get up and he'd run away. He'd just run away. People couldn't find him. Maharaji would say, find him, bring him back. You know, and nobody could find him. He'd be hiding somewhere, you know, crying to himself, weeping out of love, you know.
Part of that love was also, I mean, his involvement with the Ramayana, which was the source of so much of that devotion, a source and focus. And you know, in the later years, he became they had these Ram Leelas, it was called, when they would recite the Ramayana, and each town had their Ram Leela stage or place or Ram Leela ground, and during the festivals in the fall, they would perform the Ramayana, and sometimes it was the same people performing the same roles year after year and getting those. They would sing it, and they would get that the songs down. And KK was the coach, and he got sick from sitting out there on cold nights. You know.
Yeah, he used to come back sick as shit.
Yeah.
After being out there. For like
stop.
wet in the rain, you know, until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Come back, get pneumonia, you get bronchitis, you know.
He didn't care about himself. He cared about giving.
Yeah, he didn't care.
And the other amazing thing is, of course, the power of that love that he shared with us. It was also informed by the history of his family, who his father, and by the way, everybody, if you want to really get an idea, KK has a book, Deva Bhumi, which is the area that he lived in, that we spent all this time. Abode of the Gods. And he does tell this story, and the story is his father, you know, tell the whole story is ridiculous, but just the fact that his father was, the British made him the officer in charge of the outlying areas, the most Badrinath, Kedarnath, these incredibly holy places that were for many, many, hundreds at least, if not more, years people would pilgrimage there, and he would go on that road. It would take months to get up there, and he met some of the most incredible saints and siddhas in that area, which he talks about in this book. And one of them was Harikhan Baba, and his father actually brought him back to his house. And all of us were able to go into the room where both he and then later Maharaji were. And so he brought back he brought to us that incredible transmission. And from when he was a small boy, that's all he cared about, was hanging out with these beings. So the combination of these two things, just a very powerful transmission.
Yeah, the first time Maharaj-ji showed up at KK's house, he says to KK's father, still doing the mantra? And still doing the mantra that Harikhan Baba gave you? And KK's father was like, because Harikhan Baba had given him a mantra and had told him, never tell anybody the mantra and never tell anybody that I gave the mantra to you. And Maharaj walked in and said, still doing the mantra? And then he says to him, take me to the room where Harikhan Baba used to hide. And in fact, that room, there was a room in the house that was kept for Harikhan Maharaj, who would come there and go in the room and stay for long periods of time, and nobody would know where he was. And he would just stay in the room for months. You know, they would feed him and stuff, but nobody would know he was there.
That long?
He would go and hide there, you know, for any length of time, you know.
Really?
Just like Maharaji had that, the cell in Central Jail in Agra. You know, his devotee was the head of the head jailer. And he had
K.R. Singh?
No.
Different.
No, different, yeah. Oh. So he had, the jailer kept an empty cell for Maharaji. And when Maharaji wanted to hide from people, he would just go to jail. And he'd stay in the cell and, you know, they'd feed him and this and that, you know.
And then KK's father became a devotee after that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Became a devotee. And remember, we went to dinner once at KK's. And there was this old lady there, from Bhumiyadar, and she was known as the old lady from Bhumiyadar. And Bhumiyadar is a little village where Maharaji built the first temple in the hills. The first Hanuman temple that he built in the hills was in Bhumiyadar.
And that's where Ram Dass met him.
That's where Ram Dass met him. And the old lady told us that story. She said when she was a girl of 8 years old, she was walking in the mountains with Harikhan Baba, and they came up to the edge of the river, and Baba told her to close her eyes and not to open her eyes until he told her to open them. So she closes her eyes, and then after some period of time, she says, Baba, can I open my eyes now? Can I open my eyes? And there was no answer. So she opened her eyes, and she found herself on the other side of the river. And Harikhan Baba was never seen again.
That was the one that up by the Nepal border or something?
Yeah. And she later grew up, got married, and was living in the village in Bhumiyadar. And when Maharaji showed up in the hills, the first place he went was her house and said, Ma, feed me. So this goes, you know, it goes on and on and on and on. And the hills, when we got to the hills, there was still so much of this. The traditions were undiluted for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, at least, of years. So we tasted the tail end of that.
And KK was
so blessed.
both, Ram Dass' introduction to that tradition.
Yeah.
And ours. And,
Yeah.
He, not to mention that we only got there because of him.
Yeah. Well,
But,
yeah, for sure. Where's the letter?
Yeah, show that letter.
That's
Yeah,
the letter, I
summarize
have
it
here
a little bit.
a letter. You can't see it too well because of the glare, but
Do you want to read some of it?
I'm going to read it. So
Okay.
Rameshwar Das and I were traveling out west after the Lama Foundation in the winter of 69.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wrote to KK, I told Ram Dass I want to go to India. He said, well, I can't tell you where Maharaji is. I said, that's okay. I'm going to go anyway. I'll find him. So he said, okay, wait a minute. So here's an address. Write to my friend KK and see what happens. So I wrote to KK, and I got a letter back. And it said that, thanks for writing, blah, blah, blah. At this time, Maharaji is not at his temple in Kenchi. Oh, we didn't hear that name before. Now we have a name. But when he returns, I'll take your letter to him, and then I'll let you know what he says. So in the meantime, Rameshwar Das wrote, and Danny Goldman wrote. So then, Om Ram, Nainital, 25th March, 1970. I'm writing to you with reference to your previous letter.
Doesn't sound like a clerk much.
Huh?
He doesn't sound like a clerk, does he?
No, he doesn't. Shri Maharaj has arrived here at Kenchi, and we hope he will be here for the next 1 or 2 months more. Earlier, he was here on the 1st of this month for only a few days and then left. I have brought your letters to him, and also the feelings of the other members of the Satsang have been brought to his esteemed notice. I hope Baba Ram Das must have told you about Sri Maharaji, who does not show any kind of enthusiasm or sentiment in calling the devotees to him, and personalities like him would not commit themselves to anything, so it would not be advisable to make the journey especially and specifically for this purpose only. However, if you happen to be visiting India and come here, you can have his darshan, as so many do day in and day out. Baba has an open door for all, without any distinction of rich or poor, believer or non-believer, etc. And it all depends on the sincerity, devotion, and earnestness of an aspirant. I have written to your other members of the spiritual family, Satsangis, also. As you are so keen to see him, now it is up to you to decide yourself to come and have his darshan. With all good wishes, yours, Krishna KK Sah. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So that was the letter we got. So it seemed pretty straight ahead to us, we want to go, his doors are open, here we go.
Find a ticket.
Not exactly. Many years later, KK told me, he says to me, this is like 10 years later, right? He says to me, did I ever tell you what really happened that day? What do you mean? He said, well, I went to KK to see Maharaji, and I brought your letters with me. And I went into the room where he was, and he was sitting with some other people, talking to them. So I came in and pranamed, and I put your letters on the tucket next to him. Where the tucket is like his bed, next to him, where he was sitting. And I sat down and began to peel an apple and cut in small pieces to offer to him. So he went on with his conversation, and he was taking the apple from my hand and eating the apple. And as he was talking and eating the apple, he notices the letters on the tucket, and he says, what's that? And I told him that they were letters from students of Ram Das, and that they wanted to come see him. Nay, tell him not to come. What do I have to do with this? And then he went back to his conversation. So KK said that he began to pout. Now, KK could pout like all the three worlds trembled when KK began to pout, because nobody could pout like this guy. I mean, he just so serious. Mm-hmm. And now see, here's the Leela. I'll finish the story. So he stopped feeding Maharaji the apple, and he looked down like this, and he's pouting, because he felt that Maharaji had given him the seva to help Ram Das. And We were students of Ram Dass, and by helping us, he was helping Ram Dass. And now Maharaji was interfering with the very seva he gave KK to do. And KK would not accept this. This was unacceptable. So he begins to pout, and he doesn't look at Maharaji, and he takes the apple back. And Maharaji's going, Kailash, kya baat? What's the matter? What's the matter? And KK said, he was looking down. Maharaji would push his head up like this to see his face, but KK would look away. He wouldn't look at Maharaji. And then he took his hand away, and he'd go back to pouting. And this happened a few times like this. Finally, he said, Maharaji, he said, finally, he threw his hands up like this, and he said, okay, tell him what you want. So being a good devotee, he's not going to lie, right? And as he says, his doors are always open. So if you're going to be here, you'll see him. But the Leela is that Maharaji, the big Maharaji is pulling all the strings of the actors. KK grew up in Maharaji's lap. He had a special relationship with Maharaji. He was like his grandson and grandfather. Even though there was respect, there was total openness and love and naturalness. If it had been another devotee, we wouldn't be here today. We would not be here. But Maharaji arranged the whole thing from behind the scenes that it played out the way it was supposed to play. It's just amazing.
There's this, let's see, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's KK.
So there was this story that KK, when he was in school, he used to cut school and go hang out with Maharaji. And his teacher finally said, okay, look, if you get me darshan of Maharaji, if you get me in to see Maharaji, I won't mark you absent when you're not here. And so KK finally, that arrangement is accomplished. And eventually KK comes back to class and the teacher marks him absent.
Really?
He said, well, I had to mark you here when you weren't when you weren't here. So now that you're here, I'm marking you absent. There's another photo of him with Ram Dass.
And it wasn't easy to find Maharaji in those days. There was no one place to go. The temples hadn't been built. He would go from house to house to house to house, to village, town to town. You couldn't find him. It was very difficult to have his darshan in those days, unless he wanted you to. So getting his darshan in those days was very difficult.
This is a great shot of KK and Ram Dass together when Ram Dass was first at the ashram at Kenchi.
Yeah.
And this bond between them that really affected all of us and helped us, he really helped us understand a little bit, I mean, the little that we could comprehend of what it was about, these siddhas, and what Maharaji was. And I think that he really was able to create for Ram Dass the appreciation of that culture. When Ram Dass was there that first winter, KK brought him books and he brought him food from his sister's kitchen, and eventually invited him to his home. And he really took that to heart to take care of him.
And he brought that back. Ram Dass brought that back. And then when we were there, we were given it as well. I mean, all the way till, for the entire time, the idea of what real family is. Even not that long ago, some years ago, I was at the house and in the puja room, and there was a picture I hadn't seen. And so I took the picture because I wanted to take the the actual picture out of the frame so I could shoot a picture of it. So I went to him and I said, KK, do you mind if I take this picture out? So he looked at me like I had just slapped him. Because there's no asking. It was so hard, even after all of those years. It was so hard to integrate that feeling of you take, you do not ask, and you demand. That's part of being in a family.
And that showed that we didn't feel any sense of distance between us.
Yeah.
You know, he so fully embraced us that if we asked anything like, is it okay to do this? He just like, it hurt him.
Yeah.
Because it means we were holding back. We were not responding to the love the right way, with enough openness, It was extraordinary.
And, the other side of that was when he came to visit us in the States, he was just totally at home.
Yeah.
And he had no hesitation about asking for anything either. He had such a good time here. I think he really enjoyed himself.
He
This
just
is,
loved to be with everybody.
Yeah. This is from the last time that Ram Dass was in India in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And you can see the, just the absolute frankness and interchange between them. I don't know what they were discussing at that moment.
Yeah. Look at that. That's so great.
It's in Kenji.
Yeah. That's like Kenji. That was amazing.
2004.
Yeah. Ram Dass made that trip.
Yeah. Extraordinary. You got a couple more up your sleeve there?
Oh, yeah. So,
He's got sleeves and sleeves and sleeves. He doesn't
Yeah, I
have
know. In his basement there.
Oh,
Oh my
nice, honey.
God, I've never seen that. Oh,
That's so beautiful.
Christ. You hide these things, right?
I didn't even know I had it.
Terrible.
It's just, Jesus.
So this is with Siddhima.
That's Siddhima. Yeah.
Look
Now
at
they,
the- oh,
and they
Siddhima
were
lived two
neighbors.
houses.
Yeah.
Siddhima lived 2 houses down the street from KK, and they were related in some long thing, and KK used to visit her by going across the roof and down into her kitchen, because when she was young and married, in those days, young married women especially didn't go out of the house without accompaniment. So she was in home most of the time, and KK and Sister Bina would go visit. And Anandamai Ma used to come to KK's house and then
I
go
thought
up
to Siddhima's house.
No, your KK's house first, and then go across the roof and down into Siddhima's kitchen to meet her, because she wouldn't go through the rest of the house. She would only come to KK's house and then go across the roofs until they get to Siddhima's kitchen, and they would spend time together there.
Incredible.
They had such a relationship, though, when they spoke together.
Yeah.
We hardly
What
got
did she
a
call him?
fragment
She
of it.
didn't
I
call
think.
him Kailash. She called him Lalu.
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 Yeah, but he would come there when we were at Kenchi, and he'd come, and all he would do is see about how he could get us having darshan with Ma. That's it. Just like from the very first time you got that letter. So we have this. Are you going to share another?
One more.
Okay.
I don't know who's this journalist from, but it says, some talking on drugs.
Some talking on drugs.
Oh, they're talking about drugs?
That's funny.
That's his writing, KK's writing, isn't it?
It might be, yeah. I think
That's his print.
I think
his
it is.
writing.
Yeah.
Looks like it's from a card he sent or something, or a book he pasted in. Huh.
I think maybe Mohan took that photo, though. Okay, sorry to distract.
No, that's so. We have this. We're going to play this. Just a small excerpt. A few years ago, we came over with camera and support group and went around with KK to all of the places that we spent time with him in India, and he just basically just transmitted everything he had. He was so committed to making sure that everything that was he represented, the love, the family, his relationship with Maharaji, the Ramayana, all of it would get transmitted to the Westerner. That was a major, especially latter part of his life. He really, I mean, so many people came through Nainital and used to spend time with him year after year. And of course, he came here and spent time with us in our houses, as I said. So we did film him, and we just because we're talking about Bhav, and there was one sequence in the film that he talked about it, and so it's just a few minutes. JR, go ahead and play it.
Actually, this bhav word is very complicated. And at the same time, it is very simple if you do not use your analytical brain. It is God gift, you may call it, or your thinking. Actually, bhav is your feelings. And you can give an example how you can define bhav. I was telling that if you go in a poor family and they serve you very simple food, but if that is prepared with bhav and love, it is so delicious. And if you go to some other place, there is pomp and show like that, you won't feel that food is too tasty. So it is called that food prepared with bhav and love. So bhav counts a lot. Some people bring lots of food, fruits to Maharaj-ji. But somewhere, what I heard that they had that ego, I have brought so much. And some people, they were very poor, they would just bring one piece of apple. But that was with bhav. The difference between the two devotees, one brought the things just for show, oh, I can bring so much. And the other bought little, but he had that bhav with love. Yes, love and bhav are interconnected. And the third thing is music. Music can create that bhav into your singing. If you can sing from the inner core of heart, you will get lost. There were great saints, they used to sing and it started raining. So the music is so powerful. And you can, through singing, you can bring that deity, that God right in front of you. Meera could see the physical form of Krishna just by singing to him. But main thing is now how we can convince the people. The first basic things to learn bhav and this, how they are interconnected. So you will have to take a little study of that, then and only then you can understand all that.
The connection.
I was reading in because some saint has said that one person asked, what does God eat? And the saint said, God eats bhav. Beautiful.
Yeah, when KK talks about the power of Bhav, and when saints have actually induced rain to fall through that incredible devotion and expression of love. And I guess one of the most, KK on this album does sing a Mirabai bhajan, at least one, right? Yes, at least one. And Mirabai was a saint in the 16th century who was totally lost in love of Krishna. and she would propitiate him and manifest him all the time. She wrote incredible devotional poetry set to music, which is recommended to everybody. Look that up. There's many different singers in India who have sung her poetry. It's just transformational. So yeah, that's a good example. And that's basically when KK sat down and just with us, without any fanfare or anything, or even in this studio situation that we had, it was just present. It wasn't something he tried to do. He wasn't trying to get anywhere. It was just present because of his constant devotion and expression of longing as well. Yeah. What it's really interesting. I just want to say something about the when he talks about how he starts to talk about Bhav. Actually, when this happened, I thought he would be immediately go and talk about music, which he does in the second part of that little excerpt. But he goes and talks about it from the family point of view, from the point of view of people getting fed, literally by this Bhav. And that was so much of our experience, right? We used to go over to the house, and they'd make this incredible spread of food, and sometimes gave us a little bit too much chili.
They had to carry us home.
Yeah.
The first time we went over there for dinner, KK was casually munching on these green chilies, and he passed me the plate. And there's sort of these pencil-thin green chilies, and I couldn't believe how hot they were. My sinuses emptied. I was crying. I could barely breathe. And he's like, munching them like they're salad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they used to
When
put
he
them
was
on
in the
our
States-
plate. It was awful.
Yeah, when he
Yeah.
was in the States, he would always try to find the hottest chilies,
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, yeah,
Like from New Mexico, the really hot ones, He always like try to find them.
yeah. And then you would have to protect your plate because there was no end to the feeding. And in India, you cannot leave food on your plate. So we had to learn very quickly
Yeah.
the Hindi words for bas, enough, and put your hands over your plate.
But that didn't work.
No, because they
No,
would
they-
distract
we-
you with
yeah,
some
right.
conversation
Yeah,
or
finally,
something.
they taught that we figured out there's this phrase, this saying in India that they feed you until you roar like a lion. So you finally have to like cover your plate and look at them and say and scream, "No more!" And then finally, okay, he's had enough. It was like that. But it was all love. I mean, it was, in India, food is like gold. In the West, it's like money. It's like in America, people in the West, somebody gives you a lot of money. It's like, wow, thank you. So many people have food, not everybody, but most people have enough to eat. But not everybody has a lot of money. So, but in India, most people probably don't know where their next meal is coming from.
And when somebody's overweight in India, they say, "Oh, he looks prosperous."
Prosperous, huh? Respectable.
Yeah. But I think the other piece of it was just this feeling that he took us into his family, that extended family, and that family and it was the family of devotees too.
Yeah.
And we became part of that. And it was
We were fully
here's one
accepted.
more.
It was amazing for us. We were loved in a way more than our own families loved us. Yeah.
That was on one of the visits west, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's West.
Parvati and KK and Radha and KD and KK and the gopis.
And the attraction of the Westerners to KK when he started, he came here very regularly. I mean, not every year, but every few years it seemed. And the effect that he had on so many people is really extraordinary. And of course, in the latter years, the last 15 years that Ram Dass was in Maui, he came at least 4 or 5 times, I think, during that period. And then he would sit with Ram Dass and just share at the retreats that we had at the Nepali Kai over the years. And there it is from one of the retreats, yeah. But let me say that, so we used to stay at Ram Dass's house, and whenever, I mean, and a couple of times, at least a couple, if not more, I actually accompanied KK to Hawaii from the East Coast or something, and he would get a garland at the airport in Maui, and you know, he made it. It was very, very ceremonial without it being premeditated at all. It was just what he knew was inside him that he needed to do. And he'd get with Ram Dass, and there was 2 things. The first moment that they met after many months or years even, and then the last moment, when he would leave. There you go. Yeah, he was faced
This is
with-
actually Ram Dass leaving in India.
Oh, leaving India. Well, same thing. That's the face. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so devastated at the thought of being
Parting.
separated from Ram Dass.
It was too much. Too much. Yeah.
And, you know, the way that he left so soon after Ram Dass felt so, you know, that was part of that being inseparable.
Yeah. I mean, actually, Parvati did a Skype thing and recorded it. Can't have been more than a couple of weeks. It was a week after Ram Dass left. And he just said out and out, I'm not staying. I can't live here anymore. He just said, I can't do it. And he left. Now, he wasn't taking care of himself the way he should have been for
But
a
he had
few years.
apparently
But
some health stuff going on he didn't
Yeah.
tell anybody about. They found all his medicines in his cabinet that he wasn't taking.
Yeah.
You know, they were
no,
all
worse than that, he showed them to me and said, I'm not taking these anymore. And he left.
Yeah, my last Skype call with him was 10 minutes of silence. I mean, neither one of us could speak, and I just finally said, "Okay, I gotta go." Okay, and that was it. Then he was gone.
Yeah. Jackie,
Yeah.
is there anybody
I was
who
just
wants?
going to ask y'all, were you open to taking some questions?
Absolutely.
So you know, part of the title of this was Love, Family, and Bhav, and you've talked a lot about family and this sense of what helped you feel like family was this sense of openness and this total acceptance, and that like this idea went not just to you all but to everyone, like often shown through food. And I'm thinking about so many of the Westerners who, like, there's problematic relationship to family, and so many people long for that sense of acceptance. It's what you talk about with Maharaji too, that like total acceptance. And with KK gone, and people not being able to go to India, and like, how do people get met there? How is that longing to be seen, to be fully accepted, and have that sense of connection and family? How do people go find that?
One time I was sitting in the back of the temple with Siddhima, not that many years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago. And all the Tiwaris the oldest grandson of the Tiwaris was getting married. And all the cousins, that whole generation of family, came to the temple to meet Ma and get the blessings for the marriage and everything. So I was sitting there, and they all came in the back of the temple, and they're talking and laughing, and I was just watching these kids, and I was saying, God, just to myself, I'm thinking, there's so much love among these family members, you know? And I was just like, what? This is unbelievable. And Ma looks at me, and I hadn't said anything. She just looked over at me. She said, you see, Krishna Das? You see what you missed by being born in America. You're not going to get it from your family because the family doesn't have it to give here. It's been too broken and betrayed and heartbroken. So that kind of love can only be found in oneself and in what they call Satsang, which is the family of devotees of God, of the Dharma, spiritual practice. You can't find it outside. If you do find it outside, it's just grace. It's just grace that you fell into it, like we did at that point in our lives. But even though we got that hit, we still had to find it inside ourselves as well. So it's not something you get from the outside, but it was a great blessing to be brought into the family and accepted that way, for sure. But
We were shown that. I mean, that was you know, perhaps the essence of whatever you want to call a teaching. And having seen that, you know, I think it's exactly what you say, Krishnadas. It's from inside, and we saw people who were manifesting that to each other, and I think that to the really infinitesimal amount that, speaking for myself, I was able to take in. I understand that is not something that you get. It's something that you give. You know, you are. It's that thing that Ram Dass quoted endlessly from Mayor Baba about how love is communicated from one person to another.
Like a disease, yeah.
Well, even Mayor Baba, it turned out, did not call it a disease.
No, only in Ramdas.
No,
love
I think
springs
that was a
spontaneously
misquote,
from the
probably
heart.
from me or something. I don't know.
No, I saw that. He said, you catch it from those who have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just to reiterate all of this, I was in a room with Siddhi Ma, with some Westerners who asked that very question. Maybe it wasn't exactly those words, but it's how do we Ma stay in the presence of Maharaji? And she just said what both of you have said, but it was absolutely get with satsang, feed people, and do the chalisa. That was the prescription. Simple, and I do believe that one of the things that happened particularly in Maui with Ram Dass, whenever we were with him and with groups and so on, even towards the end when he was doing, quite regularly satsangs in his house, and people would come over and be fed, not large groups, 30 people maybe, and they'd have kirtan and satsang. And that is the essence of how this all came through, starting with Ram Dass, of course, being with Maharaji, and then being sent over to KK's to be part of that family. And everything kind of was rolled from there as we Westerners came and were introduced in the same way. Family, satsang, kirtan and food.
When Ram Dass first came back, and he said that he was talking about consciousness, and he was very, sort of overwhelmed by what he called Maharaji's psychic powers. But what we felt when we first met him, what I felt was that love coming through. And it was like, it was the connection that he had experienced, and he was passing it on whether he knew it or not.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
There's sort of a part two to this question then. So you sort of, you catch it is one way, and you find it within. And the second part of the question is, as Westerners, many of us live in our heads. And so to drop down into the heart is this practice, right? This is what we're talking about. And you're talking about singing as part of that practice. So there's this like internal, like, do you just fake it till you make it? Does it eventually spontaneously arise? Like, can you speak into that a bit?
well, you have to deal with your stuff. You can't pretend you don't have your stuff. You have to become aware of it, and you have to do some practice in order to get the leverage to let go of some of that stuff. Some of the programs that are running, the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves all lifelong and don't even notice. The fact that we believe everything we think, I mean, it's ridiculous. So until you start to do some practice, like Siddhima said, do Hanuman Chalisa, that's practice. Feeding others, that's practice. It pulls you out of your dreamland, and it gives you an opportunity to recognize that you're gone, and then you can let go and come back. So it's a beginning of a process of cleaning out the vessel for the grace to be poured into. Because they always say you can't pour like freshly boiled milk into a vessel with dirt in it. It has to be clean. So our hearts have to be so-called liberated from all the things that we cover ourselves up with. And if we're doing that practice, that's also grace that we're doing the practice. And when you start to think about other people instead of yourself all the time, it's a very different way of going through the day.
Fake it till you make it is not a bad practice either. I mean, that is a practice. There was the story of, who was it, the sage who wrote the Ramayana, who was reciting Mara, 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 which was, Valmiki, until an anthill grew over him. And he became enlightened because it turned into Mara, 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 turned into Rama, Rama, Rama.
Yeah.
And it does take care of itself in some way if you embark on it in some, even with an imperfect intention and knowledge. And,
you have to do something. That's the point. And whatever it is, you have to do it with some sincerity.
Yeah.
The faking, I don't like the faking thing because that implies disingenuousness, and that's not useful on the path at all.
No, it's the intention in the heart.
Although you do remember, I think you even quote this or tell the story about Tiwari walking with Maharaji and just saying, it's doing all these prayers and mantras and meditation. It's useless. Repeating all this, it's useless. What, the way that Tiwari would talk. KC Tiwari was another one of our mentors alongside of KK and Dada Mukherjee. And Maharaji said, you're right, it's useless. But at one time that it's real and it's sincere. Something
They used to say, go on, sing your lying, fake, false Ram.
Yeah.
One of these days, you'll say it and the real Ram will come.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
but
part
you have
of it
to go
too.
on
You do have to
as you are. You can't, it's not to pretend that you're finished, but you just recognize your limitations and you're going to do it anyway, even though you don't know what the fuck is going on. You're still going to have to do some practice.
Yeah. Another question, Jackie?
Yes. One of the questions is, what is your relationship with Maharaji in your day-to-day life?
I love KD's analogy of getting on the train and then running as fast as you can in the opposite direction that the train is traveling.
Right. You're still at the station when it stops. You know, when we first walked into the room with Maharaji, that first time, my experience, I had been feeling him in America after, being with Ram Dass, and I've been feeling him everywhere all the time. And then we get to Kenchi and we walk in the room and it was like, wait a minute, how does all that fit into that little thing wrapped up in a blanket? It was like a shock, I got over it, but it was like, what? But then, Maharaji, oh, okay, yeah. So, Maharaji used to say, I have the keys to the mind. He said, I could turn your minds against me. And he would laugh. I'll transfer you. I got you. And we would think, don't do that. We'd say, Baba, don't do that. And he would laugh. We were thinking, can you imagine you wake up one day in the hotel in Nainital and you think like, what am I doing in India? I want to go home. And then you just get on the bus, go back to Delhi and go home. He transferred you. You didn't even know it. So I said to Ma, Maharaji said that he has the keys to the mind. So to me, that means that I am where he wants me to be. Not just physically, but I am experiencing every moment what he wants me to be and experience. So I said to her, if that's the case, which I believe, then what is practice? What's the use of my effort? Where does effort come in? And she looked at me and she said, Krishna Das, it's all grace, but you have to act like it isn't. And I went, oh, it's all grace, but we don't know that. That's not the world we're living in. We're living in the me world, the world of me and mine and relative reality and going here and going there and sleepwalking and dreaming and daydreaming. We are not aware of the living in perfection in grace. And so the effort that we have to make in that inside of our lives is to open to that grace, to purify the heart and allow that grace to manifest. And it's funny, Dada quoted Maharaji once as saying, Dada, if I've done one thing in this life, I've remained wherever Ram has placed me. This total surrender, absolute oneness, just...
This guy, on the other hand, used to give Maharaji such a hard time and play all kinds of pranks on him. Maharaji had given him a blessing to be always like a child. And he said, I took full liberty with that.
Well, it's funny because Maharaji didn't necessarily say it as a blessing.
Yeah.
But when KK would tell the story, he would say, oh, he blessed me that I would always be as a child, And based on that, he took advantage of Maharaji whenever he could.
But he used to say, especially in the later years, Mine is not unconditional. I don't have unconditional love. It's conditional. You do what I want. I have, eventually a little documentary will come out because of all this footage that we have. But I also have one night, Maharaji was giving him darshan, and he called me right after.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was in the midst of. And I luckily hit record. And he just went on. I mean, I can't remember if I shared this with you guys, but he went on and on about this notion of this is not my path, unconditional. No, it's conditional. You're your guru. If I make a mistake, if I commit a sin, it's up to you to free me. This is and he went on like that. I don't care about heaven worlds, he would say. I don't care about Vaikunt. All I care about is being able to fight with the siddhas. That's exactly what he said. And in his book, listen, look, I just found this thing in KK's book, Deva Boon. So Maharaji at some point was bugging him to get married, and of course he just kept, no way that's going to happen. So one day in the evening time, Maharaji was just lying on his tucket in the office room, and I was sitting there silently. In the meantime, Siddhima entered. And she might have been thinking that Maharaji was insisting on me getting married, although we were not talking about that. Without any reference, she started speaking to Maharaji. You go, why are you forcing KK to get married if he doesn't want to? Oh, KK, oh? Before she could complete the sentence, Maharaji sat straight up on the tucket, and in a harsh tone, he yelled at Siddhima, why did you get married? And now you're asking him not to? That was such a wonderful scene, Maharaji murmuring and Siddhima and I smiling, enjoying the mood of Maharaji, full of hidden love. So great.
Ram hi keval prema pyara, jani leo jo jani hara. KK used to repeat this a lot. This is from the Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas, and it says, Ram only loves love. The only way to Ram is love. And those who know that, they know what has to be known. Ram hi keval prema pyara.
At the end of the little excerpt, KK talking about Bhav, right at the very end, is so great. And I remember this in the moment where he said, a saint told a story. Somebody asked, what does God eat? And the saint said, God only eats Bhav. So great, right? Only Bhav.
Love that. Earlier, Raghu, you had mentioned something about longing and devotion. And I'm wondering if y'all could talk a little bit about that connection of the longing and the love and the bhav and the devotion.
Well, one thing that certainly many of the melodic structures that are in different kirtans that we learned in India and that are created, that Krishna Das has created, Jai Utal, have the music has this feeling of reaching out and wanting to pull back in, longing. And that added with the mantras, or in the case of if it's a bhajan, really creates the kind of magnetic pull that, to me, is the easiest way to, it's the easiest practice, for sure. And of course, look what Krishna Das does, and the attraction therein. And so longing is definitively a big part of what Bhava is to me. Krishna Das? What do you say?
Yeah, it's the main, I think, for everybody, all of us, when we come into Maharaji, and even for me, when I met Ramdas, the idea was I was home. I finally come home. And then you want to be home all the time, but you find your own stuff pulling you out of your heart, pulling you out of that connection. And that's the longing is that like the, it's like what's getting stretched, and that pulls you back also. Somebody said it's human beings experience being pulled into themselves as longing. When we get pulled by our own hearts, by that light within us, the love that is pulling us into ourselves, that we experience that as longing, and we follow that longing, and mostly really the only problem we have is bad aim, We're trying to get that longing
somewhere else,
satisfied by
Wrong
other
place.
things, and it's just never going to be. It's only we have to follow the longing more deeply. And Maharaji's last instruction to me was he was sending me back to America, and after 2.5 years in India, and I was thinking, what am I going to do in America? I've been walking around in a red dress and bare feet in India for what am I going to do in America? So he said, I thought, well, I better ask him, I mean, I'm leaving now. And then I said to myself, don't ask him, you fool. You should have faith. You just shut up and just everything will be okay. And the other part of me was saying, what, are you crazy? I'm going back to America. What am I going to do? So I blurted out, Baba, how can I serve you in America? And he looked like he bit a pickle. Like it was like, if you ask about service, it's not service. And he looked at me and said, just do what you want. Nobody ever told me that in my life, ever. Do what you want. So that became, I had to find what I wanted. So you follow that longing to get what you want from bump to bump to bump to bump, until you find the real thing. And it put it on me, and as a result, I spent many years in extraordinary desperation and darkness and desolation, because the things I was trying to use to get what I wanted would never give it to me. So you had to get over that and keep moving. So everybody has to learn to trust their hearts, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you. That's the first thing. Nobody can tell you. And if somebody tells you something that feels right, where does it feel right? Down the block? No, it feels right in your own mind and heart. So you trust that and you move ahead. And if it pans out, good. If it doesn't, next. But you have to keep listening.
Take what you can use and lose the rest.
What's that?
Longing place in this practice of bhakti is about merging finally. I mean, and finding we are all beating around the bushes looking for what takes us home. And we keep doing it, but in spite of the somewhat aimless and misdirected ways that we go about it because we don't know what we're doing.
We have the 5-limbed yoga. What's the problem?
Yeah, eating, sleeping, drinking tea, gossiping, and walking about.
Wandering
What else is there?
that Maharaji used to say about us.
The Westerners don't do Ashtanga yoga. They do Panchtanga yoga, the 5-limbed yoga. Kane, pine, sone, gumne, and whatever.
Goop.
Gossiping. Eating, drinking tea, wandering about, gossiping, and sleeping. Those were the 5 limbs of the yoga that we were qualified for.
Yeah, this is it. So,
Bhakti is about, that longing and the love and the wanting to get home, and all of that is about merging into that oneness that Maharaji lives in.
yeah.
Pretty
And
simple. And only our minds are keeping us away from it. One thought.
so I think we're at the end of our
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a beautiful,
shoe.
beautiful note to end on.
Or as Ram Dass kept saying, you're not who you think you are.
Well, I just want to, we're wrapping up, and I just want to say a really big thank you to all 3 of you. It's really fun to see you all get together and chat and tell these lovely, amazing stories about your time there and your practice and this love of your friend, and how he's touched your life in so many ways, and therefore touched so many of our lives. And a big thank you to everyone who's out there, the Sangha that's in the ethers together, all of our hearts touching. Such a gratitude to come together. And a thank you to the people who are behind the scenes making this happen. There's lots of people who work different pieces so we could all be here tonight. If you want to continue to see events like this, please consider supporting financially by going to ramdas.org/donate. And also don't forget to check out the album, the KK album, the Bhav of KK, which is you can find either in Digipack or download on shop.ramdas.org.
We also have it on my web store too. If you want it.
Good. What's the
KrishnaDas.com.
KrishnaDas.com.
Yeah.
All right. And then there's also just another thing. If you want some more teachings of Ram Dass, we have just launched our evergreen course at Wisdom Library that has all sorts of courses, including cultivating conscious relationships, exploring our fear around death and dying, expanding our hearts into service and social action. So you can find that on ramdas.org as well. And I want to give a shout out. There's a couple other fellowships. So this is a fellowship call. We have a meetup once a month as well, where we meet face to face and discuss things. And we also have a women's satsang, whether you're cisgender or non-binary or gender non-conforming. And that's next Sunday on the 21st. So if you want to be a part of that, it's co-led by lovely women. Nina Rao will actually be there. Next time it's going to be stories of City Mall. So you can sign up on our
great.
fellowship page. And there's other fellowships as well. So
Can I pose as a woman and come?
nope, you cannot. You can totally come to the general fellowship, and it will be lovely.
I just want to just reiterate again, this wonderful book, Being Ram Dass, that Ramesh co-wrote with Ram Dass, is available, and you can look for that. Also, there's one other thing that's really cool that Krishna Das did, which is he read his book.
Oh, yeah.
And that's out now, I believe, right? Is
Yeah,
that
right.
available?
Yeah.
So you can go to audible.com and get it, Chance of a Lifetime. And so that's also something, and not to mention, many of you are aware Krishna Das does Thursday night satsangs at 4 Pacific, 7
Yeah, 7
Eastern.
New York time.
Yeah, so that's
And
something.
then it's also up on YouTube later, or Facebook page later.
Right.
It's recorded.
It's been such a
So-
gift during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody for being here.
Okay.
Thank you. And we shall, we'll see you next time. Ram Ram.
Ram, 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 ram.
मेरा मगर सांप पिटारा राना ने भेजा, मेरा हाथ दियो जा, नाया धोया मेरा देखन लागी, नाया धोया मेरा देखन लागी, सालिग्राम भये पार, मेरा मगन भये हरि किए गुण जहर का प्याला राना भेजा, मेरा हाथ दिया जा, नाया धोया मेरा पीवन लागी, नाया धोया मेरा पीवन लागी, हो गई अमर अचार, मेरा मगन भई, मगन भई हरि किए गुण गा, सोली सेज राना ने भेजी, सोली सेज राना ने भेजी, दीजो मेरा सुवार, सांझ भई मेरा सोवन लागी, सांझ भई मेरा सोवन लागी, मानो फूल बिछा, मेरा मगन भई हरि के गुण गा, मेरा के प्रभु सदा सहाय, मेरा के प्रभु सदा सहाय, राखे विघ्न हटा, भजन भाव में मस्त डोलती, भजन भाव में मस्त डोलती, गिरधर पर बलि जा, मेरा 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 Hari Kirtan